Hey everybody, Brett Rice, coreVISION Financial Group, coming to you today with another installment in our series on financial topics. Please go to our YouTube page and subscribe so you'll be notified when we post new videos. That way you can be up to date on all of our videos here. Today I'm joined by Jason Pike, a partner here at coreVISION. Jason, give yourself a quick introduction.
No, I appreciate that, Brett. I didn't really plan for an introduction, but we'll try it. This is my 20th year in the industry, so I definitely want to think about that a little bit and talk about that. It's been quite an awesome ride, and I just want to take a second to thank everybody, that we work with here, all the clients, anybody that's ever, supported us, supported me. Back when you first get out of college, you don't know if you could do a single thing for 20 years, but all the clients, everybody with support, all of the people here that we work with, and they just make it to where it's been a joy. So 20 years, I'm pretty excited about it. And partner here, we just continue to try to do the right things every day, grow a little bit here and there, and it's a lot of fun.
So today, Jason,
Financial Literacy Month.
That's right. We're moving into Financial Literacy Month here in April.
It's like our Christmas.
Yeah. It's like Christmas for financial advisors.
We'll call it that.
So what do you want to talk about today during financial literacy?
I had a lot of time to think about this, preparing, and I think that probably the number one question we get from pre-retirees or people even in retirement already are, Brett, how much should I take out of my account? We go back to those Transamerica commercials back in the day where everybody's carrying around their big orange number, right? Like, what's your number? And so everybody wants to know now, what's their number? Like, how much do I need? And it's nice to be able to take them through, just a couple minutes of just teaching them kind of, hey, they can run that number at any point. They can log into their account, they can look at their statements, they can call us. It's fine. We'll talk about it. But at the same time, it's nice to be able, through a little bit of education, to really kind of peg a percentage of that number and really work backwards and say, okay, well, here's your number. Now, what's that mean for you from a withdrawal rate standpoint? As time has evolved, sequence of returns, as that happens, this isn't a perfect scenario, but most people are looking for, hey, what can I expect? I know what my Social Security check's going to be. If I've got a pension, I know what that check's going to be. How much can I take out of this without running out of money?
Right.
That's the question.
Right.
So I wanted to touch on that topic today, Brett.
Okay, because you're right. We do have this conversation a lot.
I had it twice today.
Sitting down with clients, it's like, what can I expect
to
be able to take out of this?
Twice today.
And not exhaust it prematurely. So, all right, let's get into it. Let's talk about safe withdrawal rates.
Back in the day, let's think 20 years ago, the rule of thumb was 5%, maybe 6%, as a withdrawal rate. So if somebody's got $500,000 sitting in their 401k or a nest egg, or they're, hey, these are retirement assets, how much can I expect off $500,000? Well, if we start applying those percentages to get an annual amount, you could take it monthly, however you want to, but use the percentage, get an annual amount, and work backwards. 5% on $300,000, $15,000 a year,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So if somebody's got $500,000 back in the day, we'd say, hey, this is what you can probably expect. Now, we have the planning software to utilize that we can get into the, if something's going to be close, if we're working on a situation where somebody's retiring early but putting off Social Security, we'll definitely implement that software to really kind of show, hey, this is where we need to pull money from in order to make this happen. But as a rule of thumb, that 5% number, remember I mentioned that was 20 years ago, has now moved to 4%.
To 4%.
And part of that, there's a few things working there. One, people are living longer, right? So we have a longer amount of time. It's not unheard of now for someone to live in retirement the same number of years they worked. So think about that for a second. So all these years that I put money in and wanted it to grow and things like that, and all of a sudden I'm going to turn that switch off and flip this switch on over here. I'm not putting in anymore. Now I'm pulling out, right? How do we put numbers to that in order to figure out what a safe withdrawal rate is? So nowadays it's more in that 4% number, which can make a pretty good difference, especially from a monthly income standpoint. So when people are preparing for retirement, we want to prepare them to have a little more money than they think they need, because at one time that person may live to 95. Or let's be honest, life is going to happen in retirement just like it happens when you're not retired, when you're in your working years. You're going to have stuff come up. You're going to have, a septic system go out, or a fence that needs put up, or a roof that needs put on. Like, that doesn't stop.
Yep.
So the other part about that 4% is even if you don't feel like a client doesn't feel like they have a good family history of living long, even with that, we've built in a little bit of a cushion there. Because the last thing that we ever want to tell anyone is, hey, this has been great. It's been a great relationship, but you've exhausted your assets. Like we can't send you a check anymore. And we don't want to do that, So trying to prepare people with a little more conservatively to where they have some more excess because we know that things are going to come up. Additionally, with that, we also know that long-term inflation rate's going to stick around 3%. Well, now all of a sudden you're taking 4 out, but inflation's going up 3. You're going to have to make 7 to keep up.
That would not be a conservative portfolio.
It's not conservative, no way.
No.
And even, and that's a good segue into.
Well, thank you.
It's great.
Nice you're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, what can I say except you're welcome? So with that, it's a good segue into looking at how those assets are positioned because, again, back when we were looking at 5% withdrawal rate, everybody was really preaching a 60-40 stock bond allocation. Well, here's the problem. Is now with sequence of returns and looking at when corrections are and looking when 08 was and you just don't know if you're going to retire at a bad time. You could just be unlucky. Those people that retired in 08, they didn't know anything was going to happen. It was just unlucky. It was unlucky.
Yeah.
So in doing that, you've got to also be prepared to possibly either work a little longer than you thought you were, or you may be in a position where you may realize, well, hey, maybe I need to take on more risk than maybe what I'm comfortable with. Because with more risk comes higher return. We know that, but it's also that's not guaranteed.
Yep.
And if we get a recession or a correction in the first 2 years of somebody's retirement, it digs a hole,
Yep.
So with that, that 60-40 kind of minimum stock allocation number at 60% it's really kind of become a little low. Now it's 65-70% in equities, which some people when they're working don't even like that much risk, right? So the trade-off is if we don't like that much risk, that's okay. But we know either we got to save a little bit more, or if we're past that, we've got to maybe take on a little bit more risk or live on a little less.
Take less.
Take less. Yeah, absolutely. It's an ever-evolving landscape. Ever-evolving.
And it's unique to each individual
person. It
person.
is, 100%.
Hey, because it worked for your neighbor doesn't mean it's going to work for
for
you.
you.
Because like you talked about family health history, all of that
Life
stuff.
happens and you never, ever, ever know what's
Right.
tomorrow's going to bring.
I think that's I like the way you started this when you were like, we'll have that conversation with you, but I think people educating themselves on all of this stuff allows for, usually a deeper conversation when we come in and we start having this conversation with clients, that if they've already started building their own knowledge base, then we can talk about it at more depth and everybody has a much better understanding when we're sitting there having that conversation. So I really like that you started it off like that.
And I think another strong point with that is with that education and those deeper conversations become people understanding expectations better. And as long as both people sitting in that room trying to plan this out understand expectations, the rest take care of itself. We're going to be realistic. We're not doing our job if we say, oh yeah, we think you can probably retire and never run out of money, when in reality you probably could.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to be a bearer of bad news at all, but at the same time, we're not doing our job if we don't paint as much of a realistic picture as we can.
Right. And, that's one of the things we're here to do is help people see the blind spots, right?
You bet.
Right? That's why, we have all this experience from all these different clients who've been through this, all these scenarios, right? And we can say, look, we've seen this happen before, right? Like you said, all of a sudden you got home repairs and blah, blah, and you're drawing that out of there. Next thing you know, you're like, hey, we're going to have a problem. And they're like, no, you told us we weren't going to run out of money. Right. Well, we didn't account for, new roof,
I have to have all those conversations up front. Just life is going to happen. That comes with some of the experience of meeting with people the last 20 years. It's just you evolve into this and you work on how and what to really educate people on about what they can really relate to and how they can process that. And I've just come to the conclusion that if everybody knows what the expectations are and here's what can wreck it, then you're in a pretty good spot, at least from a relationship standpoint.
Yeah. The expectation never was for this account to make 12% a year.
It also wasn't the expectation for you to take out an extra $30,000 a year. Right. And that happens sometimes. And I think, people, when they save and save and save into their 401k, they retire with, big, 6 figures in it or relative, whatever it is. It can be relative to any situation. They just think that can never run out. They're like, that's just such a big number that it can never run out. And it's just simply not the case. Like, I've seen it happen. I've seen people roll through it, and it's not fun.
You talked about sequence of returns. Couple bad years right in the very beginning, a couple of excessive withdrawals. Next thing you know, you could be in a completely different situation than what we had planned for.
And here's the problem with that sequence of returns and how that works is especially when you're taking money out. If your account's down 20%, you don't have to just do 20% to get back to even, right? It's something like, don't quote me on the number, but it's something like high 20s, 27, 28% just to get back to even. You have less money for your money to compound on. You're not adding. You're retired. You're taking out. So let's say we're pulling 4% out. Market's down 20. We're out 24% right now. We're going to be out 4% the next year no matter what, because ain't no way we're taking a pay cut. You learn to live on what you have, right? We're not going to take a pay cut. Okay. Well, now we're down 24% and got to do 30 plus to get back to even. So understanding that and having those conversations, another conversation I had today was that exact one. And I think just having that and people it's a way that people can wrap their minds around it and really internalize it and think about things, hey, this is what the next really 20 to 30 kind of look like. Here's how I can position myself and be comfortable with it, with the process.
I mean, because it can definitely change dark real quick.
Very quick.
So wrapping this up, let's just kind of real quick, what's your last words on this?
I think it's a great thing to look at. I don't care what age you are. You can do in your, you can reach out to us. There are multiple ways to get a hold of us. I think you're on at the end of this. Reach out, ask questions. Somebody here will talk to you for sure. Like, there's never a stupid question. Don't think that, just because you had life happen and had kids and had a mortgage and it's like, oh, you're 35 and just now starting. Like, don't take that for granted. You will never, ever get age 35 back to get started. It's never too late to start, and there's never an amount of money that doesn't matter. Right. So even if it's just, hey, my company is, matching 4%, or I've got to do 5% to get 4%. I mean, that's a good chunk of money that they're giving you for free every year. Then you get to turn around and invest. So just try to get that free money. If you can't, don't not do it because you can't do the full 5. Do 3. Bump it up. The biggest thing I tell all my young clients is when we meet and they want to know what they should do, I literally have them pull their phones out, and on their calendar every January 2nd, I have them put in there, increase retirement plan contributions by 1%. They won't feel it. And it will help so much because they're 30 or 35 years old now. Think about how much is going. I mean, they're maxing that plan out without even thinking about it by the time they're 45 or 50.
Game changer.
It's a big one. I mean, it's a 7-digit game changer. And I know people be like, oh, okay, whatever. But it's a 7-digit, for a lot of people, that's a 7-digit game changer, just if they would do it. You're not going to feel it. You're not going to miss 1% because you probably got a 3% cost of living adjustment. So with that being the case, that's something easy everybody can do. Make sure you're getting the free money, your 401k plan if you have one, max it out, keep it going, up it by 1% a year. Do some of those things. But I think ultimately, with this being Financial Literacy Month, there's going to be a lot of third-party stuff out there. Just try to gravitate towards some areas you might trust, read some articles, gain some viewpoints, get some education, and then, like you said, we can have a little bit higher level conversation that helps that understanding.
Yep. Yep. Setting the expectation, right?
Absolutely.
People think I really like the way you're phrasing that as, there's no amount of money that's too small, because it's super important to that person, right? I mean, I just think that's great nugget there that you've shared.
So many people will think just because I can't do the amount to get the free money, I'm just going to wait to do it until I can, which ends up being, when do they do it?
Never.
Thanks
for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Brett.
Again, Brett Rice, coreVISION Financial Group. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video today. Please go to YouTube and subscribe. Check out all of our videos there. Contact information's at the end of this video. Thank you very much.